Welcome to ASHB's quarterly Smart Home Council webinar meeting. My name is Marta Kloptovska, and I'm the Programs and Communications Manager at ASHB. I'll be emceeing the slides today. Please note that today's webinar meeting is being recorded, and we will be circulating it for those who registered and for those who are in attendance today, along with the presentation slides. A quick look at today's agenda. First, we'll do some introductions and about this Smart Home Council, CHC. We will go over some administrative. We'll do a quick research update. Greg will give us a little bit of information on the smart home project that we're currently working on. Today's keynote will be the U.S. Cyber Trust Mark, an update with Mike Bergman from the CTA. We'll also go over a few of ASHB's activities. We'll go over the podcast, white papers, journal, go over some new business announcements, and then we will adjourn for today. And with that being said, I will pass it over to Ken, who will introduce the Smart Home Council, formerly the Connected Home Council.
Thank you very much, Marta. It's a pleasure to convene another meeting of the Smart Home Council of ASHB. I welcome everyone. I am the chair, and I run a management consultancy specializing in home and building automation and applications, predominantly energy management. I'm also responsible for the world standards in this field for ISO and IEC. A bit about the Smart Home Council. The Smart Home Council was established in 2004 as the ASHB Connected Home Council. It initiates and reviews projects that relate to the connected home and multiple dwelling unit technologies and applications. The council also examines industry opportunities that can accelerate the adoption of new technologies, consumer electronics, and broadband services within the burgeoning connected home market. Smart Home Council webinars and selected research topics explore industry shaping trends and forces and the use of technology to make connected homes more flexible, adaptable, and human-centric. We have got a few administrative matters to deal with. Marta distributed the Smart Home Council minutes. They are available on the website. You can see in the screen. The meeting minutes from February 20th of this year are available at the Smart Home Council website. Does anyone have any corrections or any comments on the minutes? Or does anyone object? And I'll wait 5 seconds. Hearing no objection. So the minutes are approved by consensus. If anyone finds last minute typos or anything like that, just let Marta know. So now we'll hear from Greg Walker about the important activities in the research realm conducted by ASHB.
Thanks, Ken. So I'll be very brief, but essentially we do these one collaborative research project every year on the smart home side, residential side. And the one that we're doing this year is the 2025 Smart Home Trends and Technology Adoption. This is the third year we've done this particular research project, and the goal is to have this going on an annual basis. Essentially, this is a $50,000 to $60,000 U.S. research project that looks at various aspects of smart home technologies. We do a survey of 500 consumers across Canada and the U.S., mostly in the U.S., and looking at some of the key topics, they're gaining their perspective on the outlook and direction of the industry. Do some in-depth interviews as well, and provide a particular report based on those annual consumer survey. And then we're doing a smart home trends analysis, picking on 3 to 5 topics selected by the steering committee of the funding organizations that you see on the screen. So we'll be producing 7 to 12 pages or so per chapter on each one of these topics, and then with the associated infographics. So there's still opportunity to join this project. We had one sort of kickoff meeting, but there's still opportunity for others to join. If you want to get access to this full research, you can do so. It's $5,000 to get the full research at the end, or $10,000 if you want to be on the steering committee and shape the research and then get an additional webinar for your organization. This year, the research project went to an RFP, and we selected Harbor Research to do the research for this year. Actually, the same research firm we've done the last couple of years, so there'll be a good historical trend in this particular research project. So with that, does anyone have any questions about this particular research or how to get involved?
Hey, Greg, this is Dave Kaufman from Residio. I'll add to that since we're one of the funders here just a bit.
Sure, great.
Mind. Yeah. So the thing that's really significant about this report and what happens year over year, which I think a lot of folks would be interested in, is you guys are probably familiar with the Gartner hype curve, which is really looking at technology and the adoption of technology and crossing the chasm and all that kind of stuff. We've actually created a device adoption curve here for this research, and we're doing it year over year so we can see in general, from a smart home perspective, what the adoption curve is and what the potential will be for specific devices. And so that's what makes this super interesting and super unique, is that we've actually kind of morphed or riffed off the idea from Gartner from a technology perspective and riffed that towards a device perspective, which is what most of us care about. So I would encourage everyone to potentially become a funder for this and help to shape the not only the trends we're going to go after, but also that, make sure we're tweaking that adoption curve as appropriate, and then get involved as a part of this. So we've been a part of this since the beginning. We helped to shape that initial device adoption curve, and it's been helpful in us to just give a really good snapshot of kind of where the industry's at and where the opportunities are at. So thanks, Greg.
Yeah, thanks, David. And I think you were the one of the pivotal ones in shaping this actual direction of this research in this adoption curve. So if there's anybody who's interested, contact myself or Marta, and then we can set up a call, and then even bring on Harbor Research to go over the research in a little bit more detail. And so you can email Walker at ASHB.com, and then we can set up a call. So,
and just one more comment, Greg. So the reason we engage in this, as Greg said, you're getting $50,000 or $60,000 worth of research for $10K, and you can shape it. So it absolutely is a great deal, and encourage folks to get involved.
Absolutely. Thanks, David.
Greg, thank you very much. We now turn to our keynote, and Marta will introduce the keynote. Unfortunately, Charlie Dirk, who would usually do this, is stuck somewhere trying to land in Newark, I believe, which is a challenge these days.
That's right.
Sounds like an episode of The Twilight Zone.
I'm not surprised with travel. So today's keynote speaker, Mike Bergman, and the topic is the U.S. Cyber Trust Mark, which is an update from a keynote that Mike presented to us, I believe, last year around the same time. And the presentation, which is the U.S. Cyber Trust Mark, it's under its final development by the FCC, led by the administrator, UL Solutions, CTA, and other industry stakeholders. This update, presented by Mike, Vice President of Technology and Standards at the CTA, will cover progress and next steps towards the deployment of the Consumer Connected Device Security Mark. Attendees will gain insights into the security requirements, certification process, its potential impact, and the role this mark will play in enhancing cybersecurity for IoT devices in the market. Additionally, Mike will highlight the collaboration efforts supports and timeline expectations for the final launch. Mike Bergman, as I mentioned, Vice President of Technology and Standards at the CTA, leads the association work on cybersecurity and internet standards at the CTA. He has been in the electronics industry for more than 30 years in memory chip design, wireless communications, and digital multimedia. He has 2 patents in semiconductor design and has contributed to various industry standards. He is a member of the FCC's CSRIC V3, I believe, Mike, and Commerce IoT Advisory Board. Correct me if I was wrong on any of that.
Close enough. Close enough. And thank you so much, Marta. That's a very gracious introduction, not diminished at all by the fact that I wrote all that stuff. So, but it's very kind of you to go ahead and actually read it. Read what I have written. Most often, what I write, people don't read. Hey, everybody. Great to see you all again. I use see you all in the sort of like metaphorical sense, since you're mostly just lines on a screen. I'm going to talk about the U.S. Cyber Trust Mark again, and wow, a ton of stuff has happened in the past year. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and see if this actually works. We've got the flow, we have the Dynaflow, cross-coupling, the constant proportionality. Oh, and there we go. Can somebody give me a confirm?
It's up, Mike.
Thank you, sir. So Ken, thank you very much for the gracious opportunity to present, and Marta for organizing this. What I'm going to talk about today is, as Marta mentioned in the lead-in, progress, next steps, what are the actual requirements, what's the process, impact, and whether it's actually enhancing cybersecurity. I'm going to spend about half an hour doing all of that. So some of these topics I'm going to hit a little bit more light than others, but let's get started. Here we go. Okay, if you're not familiar, this is just a very quick overview of the concept. This is a voluntary program where a manufacturer can get a certification mark and QR code to put on the package of the product. There's also a version of this that would go on an e-commerce site, so that a consumer who's only shopping by e-commerce can also encounter this. And then there's a digital link through the QR code to a couple of pages. The first page is the consumer-friendly information. The second page is more technical information. The consumer-friendly page is intended to help guide consumers to make smarter choices for a more secure product. Also inform them a little bit about the security of their product. The more technical page is intended to improve cybersecurity in the ecosystem overall by providing information like key management. My personal #1 favorite on this whole page, the contact to the security team. How do you contact the manufacturer's security team? It's a requirement of the program. So there's a lot of information available for consumers. I'm not going to walk through all the detail on this page, but this is in a standard that is about to be published, CTA 2120. We are proposing it to the FCC to use this exact format that you see on the screen. I don't know yet if they're going to buy into that, but there's not a lot of other label designs floating around that are like thoroughly documented in terms of allowable string lengths and JSON code, things like that. The CTA standard 2120 has a full JSON implementation of this so that it can be exchanged as a digital object, as well as being used as the source for the HTML that presents this image. So we've got a lot of work done on this, and I'm hopeful that it will actually be adopted by the FCC in the final program rules. Okay, so that's the concept, big picture. The FCC is administering a voluntary program. Originally, the Trump administration kicked off the thread with the with the botnet roadmap effort in 2017 after the Mirai botnet attack. The Biden administration picked it up and asked NIST to look into labeling programs. NIST did the seminal 8425 standard. You can look for NIST 8425, NIST IR 8425 to see that document. It's a voluntary program. We originally pitched what's almost this version to the National Security Council at the White House, we meaning the Consumer Technology Association. It's not the only vector pushing in that direction at that time. Ours was the most complete, like summary of here's all the things that you need to do. And they eventually took our work and made a straw man proposal, brought in a whole bunch of stakeholders, and launched this effort. The FCC picked it up, and so now the FCC is administering it. They have tasked UL to administer it as the lead administrator, and there are standards and test procedures being developed now for accredited third-party conformity assessment. Couple of things in there. Accredited third-party conformity assessment means that this is a fully tested, third-party tested effort. There's no self-declaration of conformity. You have to go out and get testing. The standards and test procedures being developed now are being done by a group of 30 stakeholders. Lloyd Linder is on the call. I want to give a shout out to Lloyd, who's been one of the big contributors, through his coworker Grace, who is also on this in this effort. Through he and his coworker Grace at IOXT, their efforts. Also in the stakeholder group, Samsung, LG, Bosch, a whole bunch of conformity assessment bodies, UL themselves. A lot of expertise in developing these test procedures. I'm going to talk a little bit about what's involved without using their material because it's confidential still. The program will have a registry of certified products, and that will be supported by an API. You'll be able to make an API call. Someone, authorized persons, will be able to make an API call to get data, and our proposal is that JSON data structure that I mentioned on the previous slide would be that data. As far as technical standards go, the best education you can get on this program, if you haven't been deeply involved, is the NIST IR 8425. You can just Google that and you'll find it. That is the foundational document. Everything in the program is intended to be in compliance with the direction in that document. However, the specific prescriptive technical requirements come from a new UL specification that's being developed now by the stakeholder group that I mentioned. It is informed by a number of documents, including CTA 2119, which is a free download. You can get that. That is a walkthrough of the 8425 document trying to make prescriptive requirements. So you can get a sense of what's going to in 303-645 was used in the development of this program, and a few other documents that you would probably recognize. The program is focused on IoT product, not device. If you are shipping a product, which is a hardware device with a mobile app and some cloud services all bundled together as you're offering to the consumer, all of that is in scope for the security program. And you have to submit all of it for the security requirement, for conformity assessment against the security requirements in the new UL technical spec. CTA, my organization, the Consumer Technology Association, is, I'm sure everybody knows who we are. We're the ones who put on CES. We're a trade association. We have government affairs doing lobbying in Washington. We have digital health and wellness programs for all kinds of businesses. We have smart home, vehicle technology. We have all kinds of business groups and technical groups. One of our technical groups is R14. That's the cybersecurity and data privacy management group. They're working on label design, the technologies that should not be allowed because they're deprecated. Think SSL 2.0, you should not be using that, it's hacked. Guidance on process, also a standardized test report format. So we've been doing a lot of work on this program for quite a bit of time. I'm going to ask folks to post questions in the chat, and I'm going to try to monitor that as we go. So that's a whole bunch of stuff, and I do want to mention my organization, the Consumer Technology Association. If you're not a member, I do recommend looking into it. This is the obligatory corporate pitch. Not only do we provide the insight into what Washington is doing in terms of regulatory and law policy, we provide the business groups like the Smart Home Division, sorry, is what it's called. We provide market research. A lot of these things are in parallel with what ASHB does, but you have another vector for information. We have our technical groups working on cybersecurity, variety of other relevant topics, and we have, of course, discounts on CES floor space if you're into that. Okay, moving on. The process from here, where we're at. The program is still under development. UL, as the lead administrator, is working on what's been referred to as the 90-day stakeholder process. It's actually running about 3 months over that length because of excellent reasons. UL filed with the FCC. They've been given an extension. And so you can watch the FCC website for the filing from UL on June 13th, so about 3.5 weeks from now. That will include the technical requirements document that I mentioned. It will include a document laying out the surveillance requirements, the post-market surveillance requirements, how many products must be tested by how many companies. It will lay out renewal requirements after you receive the certification for your product. How long can you have that be valid before you have to go back and do something, anything, such as file again or go through full testing again. Spoiler alert, we're kind of leaning towards multiple years. There's no incentive for annual updates on this. So that information will all be publicly available sometime after June 13th. The FCC may not publish it all right away. UL may not make it a public filing. We don't know that yet. But June 13th is the trigger date for that to go from UL to the FCC. The FCC will eventually make decisions on what UL recommends, and then the final draft version will go out in a public notice. Note that the FCC does have the leeway to make changes to what UL recommends. The FCC is currently on a very strong national security binge. They're very interested in national security, watching out for critical infrastructure, watching out for the national security in general, very concerned about adversary nations, and those concerns and that policy incentive is spilling a little ink into the water of this program. So we're adapting, and the June 13th date takes that into account. After the public notice, the next step is accreditation of the cyber labs who will do the testing, and the cyber labeling authorities who will do the review of the test report, review of the application, and the grant of certification. After accreditation is done of somebody, then first product testing can happen. We are calling that a maybe Q4 2025 activity. Having certified product at CES 2026 is considered a stretch goal by CTA. Love to see it. We think it's going to require some enthusiastic momentum by the FCC. I have faith based not on only my work with them on this program, but also recent things I've heard. So I think the FCC is going to move expeditiously. The accreditation bodies are looking to move expeditiously. So those two steps, FCC public notice and accreditation, I'm anticipating them to move more or less at a pace consistent with wanting to get it done quickly. So that's kind of where we're at on process. So far, I am in... I've got about 15, 20 minutes left, Marta. Is that correct? My timekeeper?
Hi, Mike. Yes. You know what? Even if we go to like 12:50, we should be good.
Okay. I'm going to hit the top level requirements. This is primarily from a device, technical requirements and non-technical requirements as laid out in 8425. And so this, what comes next is not based on the UL technical requirements. I'm part of that development process, so I'm not completely blind to it, but I've deliberately not tried to use that as source material. This is the NIST 8425 CTA 2119 walkthrough, but I promise you those source documents are going into the UL document, and you won't see a huge amount of surprises except some stuff I'll flag at the end. Okay. Technical requirements. What does the product need to do? All right, so we're focusing on what you can observe with a black box in your hand. All right, if you go to NIST 8425, category 1 is asset identification. There are keywords here. The keywords on my slides were chosen deliberately. I suggest if you get a copy of the slides afterwards, which we're providing, Marta's promised to distribute. Look at these keywords, okay? They were chosen deliberately. Asset identification, you need to be able to uniquely identify your product within the scope of how it's going to be used. It doesn't necessarily have to be globally unique or universally unique, but when it's on the network, whoever is actually looking at the network should be able to distinguish it from other products of the same type. If I buy 2 models of your baby monitor and put it on in my home, and I look at it on my Wi-Fi, I should be able to tell the difference. Same thing on an enterprise network. Couple of other things in here. Authorized entities. As manufacturer, I encourage you to think about who is authorized. That may be a cybersecurity question, but you may also choose as the manufacturer to say, look, anybody who has physical possession of this object is authorized. That's part of my definition of authorization. If physical access is authorization, then a serial number printed on the unit is an asset identifier. I want to be clear. You do not necessarily, in our read of this, and in all the things I've heard, you should not have to do something more than a unique serial number for a consumer product. That may change, but right now I would say that's the way to bet. Dynamic inventory, you should be able to get the inventory of this product, whatever the method is, walking around your house and looking at the serial number, pulling it up on a management console at the enterprise, whatever. You should be able to get an updated inventory when you need it. A lot of times you simply pull up the mobile app and see how many of the baby monitors are installed to this mobile app. Number 2, product configuration. A way to change the IoT product configuration that is restricted to authorized entities. Again, keywords are important here. Authorized entities. So someone on the internet who sees you through some dark web scanning tool should not easily be able to change your product configuration. Product configuration does not mean software. Software update is handled separately in this program, but security settings certainly are. There's also a requirement for a secure default configuration. So I'm not sure how many people here are actual manufacturers versus installers, but that secure default configuration is key and may be overlooked by some product requirement specifications in the development process. Data protection. Sensitive data is protected securely. What is sensitive data? Really think about personal information, personally identifiable information, credentials. Those are really the 2 categories, credentials and personally identifiable information. It's protected securely. Securely is probably going to be defined in terms of cryptographic security, modern cyber security technology. Personal information can be deleted. You should be able to delete personal information from the device, from the app that you're using, probably when you uninstall it, but also from the cloud. And you should have some way to know that your cloud data, your cloud account has been deleted and the data deleted. That's actually been in the news recently, that people delete their account and the data stays in the possession of the manufacturer. Was that a question? Okay, rolling on. And then finally, industry accepted secure protocols, not deprecated ones. CTA is publishing a deprecated technology list. It's currently in Annex A of CTA 2119. Again, that's 2119. You can get the CTA specs and standards from cta.tech/source. And Annex A will have a pretty good shot, I think, at what the deprecated technologies are that you should not be using. SSL 2.0, SSL 3.0, MD5, a bunch of others. I'm going to put CTA-2119. I put that in the chat for the deprecated technologies list. We're actually going to break that out most likely into its own document so the deprecated technologies can be maintained as a separate document. Anybody who's interested in any of these standards development processes, I'll have a link at the end where you can join up and help us do things like define the industry's deprecated technologies. Okay, interface access control. Again, we're in the hardware requirements, the device requirements. Physical, logical, and developer user interfaces are protected. Protected may mean that it's not possible to easily log in over the internet using a default password to a logical interface that gives you full control. Okay, that's a pretty basic minimum requirement that's going to be enforced. But it also means that you should have some kind of physical access control over a JTAG port. That may mean you can certainly argue that conformal coding or a drop of glue or something blocks off the port. A physical case tamper evidence sticker would work. Screws that are difficult to open. There's a variety of cases you can make that you're protecting physical interfaces, but you should definitely look at your JTAG, USB, RS-32, RS-232. What else? I would consider I2S and I2C to be interesting, but you might not necessarily be challenged there. I don't think there is a logical security mechanism for I2C. There isn't a password control on I2C, but I'd be happy to be told I'm wrong on that. Unused ports and sockets, I should have said sockets as well, are closed off. You don't leave open a telnet service. Variety of other, the socket that gives access to FTP. If you're not providing these services, close them off. Passwords are not hard-coded. They are protected from brute force attacks, meaning if someone simply tries every possible password from a rainbow dictionary, after about 5 tries, either you start a time-based back-off algorithm or you lock them out for 5 minutes or do something so that they can't do one password try every 10 milliseconds for days. And this last stuff that's in italics is keywords, key language. Look at this one closely. Your passwords should be either, number 1, user provided, number 2, factory default but must be changed on first use, or number 3, they must be uniquely generated for the hardware. I have a router at home from Verizon. It's got a uniquely generated password on the side of the box. You have to have physical access of the box in order to get that password. That meets the uniquely generated category. Data validation and the principle of least privilege on all interfaces. I'm not sure about the principle of least privilege making it through the screen, but data validation, absolutely. This is the source of, and a study I personally undertook looking at the National Vulnerability Database, over 30% of hacks, the kill chain included some kind of data input abuse, where you can upload a file to some safe directory, but then they change the name of the file so that it does something malicious once it's uploaded. It goes to a different directory than you intended. There's a whole bunch of work on data validation, but this is the source of a variety of attacks, cross-site scripting attacks, SQL attacks, and if you want just a little fun thing, Google Little Bobby Tables, and you'll get a comic about it that's cited most often of all the web comics in cybersecurity. That is the one that's cited most often, Little Bobby Tables. Finally, no unauthorized transmissions from or to any of the components. That one's hard to test. I'm not sure we're going to be able to do that one, but that was in the CTA 2119. Software update. Software can be updated by authorized entities using a secure verification process for authenticated updates, either automatically or with notification to users. Let's break that down. I'm going to do the last part first. When you provide updates, you have to provide updates. You have to provide update capability, I should say. Either it's automatic, which is preferred. No user intervention at all. It simply gets updated. Smart home people hate that. Smart home installers hate that, but that is recommended as the preferred path. We ended up asking for language that said, I'm going to share a little bit out of school here. We asked for language that said, if automatic is the default, please make an option for manual override for the installers. Specifically because we'd heard from CTA's smart home division that after you've fully installed something and somebody comes in and does an automatic update, you get a service call because it doesn't work anymore because of manufacturer update. Nobody wants that. So if you're doing the install and you're responsible for the program, for the house and the programming of the devices, hopefully you'll get your own controls over that. The other alternative is notification to users, so that the app says, hey, there's an update available, kind of like you get on an iPhone. Other key points in here: software can be updated, period. That is a requirement. Authorized entities, you should not be able to sideload software from just anybody. That is going to tick off people in the router world, particularly when this program hits routers, but that'll be different rules. We'll have to see if that follows through. Secure verification process for authenticated updates. The implication is that the firmware updates should be digitally signed and the digital signature is checked. I'm going to mention again, I assume you can post questions in the chat. It's open as far as I know, so feel free to interrupt this massive stream of information with a question in the chat. Cybersecurity state awareness. You have to have the capability of doing some kind of logging. I would recommend making sure you can at least log failed password attempts. There isn't a list of things that you have to do, as far as I know, not in CTA 2119, not in 8425, but the guy who was the lead engineer on 8425, which is Mike Fagan at NIST, Dr. Mike Fagan, one of the things he told me once was, simply forcing people to open up some kind of logging will hopefully generate more logging culture so that there's more forensic data available when a problem occurs. And if you talk to the FBI, forensic data that they can use after a hack occurs is what they're all about. So we're trying to improve cybersecurity of the world in general, and this is one of those particular flags. Okay, non-technical requirements. This is now what does the organization need to do? This is a lot longer walkthrough, and I'm going to hit much more quickly and refer you to reading the slides later. But particularly look to 8425's non-technical requirements to get the full list of everything, because my list is abbreviated. My list is based on 2119, but that's not going to be the final list. 8425 is the full list. At least that's what UL is working from. Okay, pre-market documentation, stuff that you documented before you ship the product. You know, the IoT components. IoT components are the IoT component with a capital C is the device, the app, the cloud, the gateway that's required to use it, the major top-line components, not the CPU. How the baseline product criteria are met. There's a bunch of other stuff here. Post-market documentation, maintenance requirements, the process of working with suppliers and vendors to ensure ongoing security, right? If I'm buying a cellular module from somebody and they've done security checks on it and I've got some assurance, are they going to continue their work on cybersecurity on that module? Vulnerability management. So vulnerability is a key thing. We want to make sure that people are on top of vulnerabilities. Information and query reception. Basically, this is give the public and consumers a way to contact your security team. And I mentioned early on in this this presentation that giving the security researchers a way to tell the manufacturer that they found an exploit is huge. We really need that because too many manufacturers aren't doing it. And they're sort of, they have their own decision process for why they are not engaging with researchers. And a lot of it involves bad publicity, liability, other things. But to qualify for this program, you're going to have to engage with security researchers. For consumers, CTA provided recommendations to the UL process. If the cybersecurity program is going to have a consumer outreach contact point for security issues, I'm sorry, any outreach point for security issues, you're going to have to triage that information somehow. This goes also for the complaint process. People are going to say, I can't find the remote for my TV, and use these contact points. So there was some thinking done in order to minimize problems that would occur from that. Telemetry data for your IoT product goes back to the logging data requirement that I mentioned earlier. That's the telemetry data. And you should be able to collect that data from the technical requirements I mentioned earlier and be able to look at it and see, oh, look, too many login attempts. Somebody's trying to hack into this customer's device. What you do with it after that is not specified by the program. Information dissemination. If you discover a problem with the security of your product after you have started shipping, a discovered vulnerability, someone's hacking it, a Chinese threat group has suddenly started using it to hack Taiwan, as in Salt Typhoon, you should be able to alert the ecosystem. The ecosystem is not really the consumers. This is the FCC and the lead administrator and the CLA that gave you your grant. You should be able to let retailers know if they're going to participate in some kind of remediation. You don't have to let the retailers know, only if they're part of your process, but you should have done some thinking about what you're going to do. What about your suppliers? You know, the 5G module supplier that provided you with that piece. As you're doing your debug, getting them involved if that's part of the loop. Risk assessment. Capital R, capital A, keyword in cybersecurity. A subject matter expert could tell you all about it. Risk assessment is a formal walkthrough of the threats and the assessment of the risk thereby. And this actually is your friend. There's reasons you will find it advantageous to have a good risk assessment, not just as you try to design a secure product, but for the smooth operation with this program. Finally, in the organizational requirements, product education and awareness, there's a list here of things that you should be able to inform consumers, and most of these would go on a website. You might even have a security landing page for consumers, right? How do you change configuration settings, and what will it do if you change them? How do you manage passwords on a product? Am I getting software updates, and all the rest of this stuff? So that's the 10 big categories that are in 8425. Again, if you're interested in the program, I suggest you read it and then look for the final technical requirements. Also check out CTA 2119 at the link I provided in the chat. This is only part of the program. That's primarily the design stuff. If you are an installer, you may be wondering, can I get all this information? That's going to be a lot of information, and I don't believe it's going to be public information. It's way too much to disclose from a manufacturer's perspective. There's been a lot of pushback on making the program total, open, transparent, every document available. And so I think it's much more likely that it'll be all under confidentiality. But there is security information available through the label that I presented on the first couple of slides. And that'll be if you're an installer, that is a very, if you're an integrator or an installer, that is a very good source of information about the different products you might be choosing. Okay, cloud services. The manufacturer will have to meet requirements on cloud services. There's a couple of ways to do that. There's a checklist that the manufacturer can go through or comply with one of these, get certification from one of these programs. Whoops, sorry, I bumped my mouse. Mobile apps will have requirements as well. That's kind of TBD, but the developers are going to need to watch out how they store data and what they store, inter-process communication calls, how they do data validation. I harped on that earlier. That's the Little Bobby Tables webcomic issue about letting unsanitized data into your system through a user input and having it wreak havoc. What's your password policy? All of these are good cyber hygiene. And so anybody who gets this mark is going to actually have gone through quite a bit of thinking about security. They will have gone through quite a bit of checking that they've done that thinking, and they will be doing updates and a lot of other exercises to make sure that the product stays as secure as is reasonable for this level of product. This is not an F-35 Joint Strike Fighter security program. This is not a Pentagon security camera security program, but it's pretty robust for consumer goods, let me tell you. That is a lot of information. There's a couple things here. The QR code goes to our landing site where you can get a bunch of presentations, white papers, and other things. That's been kind of stable. I don't want to use the word static, but we haven't posted a lot of new content on it during this last 5 months while UL has been working through the process with us. But that link will get you information, and if you save it, we do update it, and we will be updating it after the 90-day stakeholder process is concluded. If you're interested in getting involved in our standards program, I recommend you to standards@cta.tech. That will get you an email to that link will get you information on how to help develop cybersecurity standards or smart home standards. And with that, I would like to, oh, by the way, you can also talk to Ken Wax. With that, I would like to pause and see if there's any questions.
So we'll take a few questions for Mike if anyone has questions at this point. Mike, this is Mike correct? This is voluntary for manufacturers. They can choose to adopt the label program, and then they have to go through all these checklists.
Yes, and the checklists will be a little bit more than just checklist security, which is a bad, bad phrase, bad word in cybersecurity. Checklist security says, do these 9 things and you're good. This is a lot more looking up underneath the skirts of the table to see if they have developed the product with the correct process and do they have the correct maintenance processes afterwards. But yeah, it's a voluntary program.
Hey,
And I
Mike,
think we have David Kaufman who's raised his hand.
thanks. I can't even see how I may have raised my hand, but I can't see it on the list. So yeah, thanks for recognizing me there. Yeah. So hey, Mike, Dave Kaufman, Residio. So thanks a lot for going through this. It's very helpful, very very relevant, I think, for all of us here. The question I have really kind of goes back to your category number 3, which really was around data protection. It doesn't seem like this is leaning into data privacy, but rather data protection right now. Is that a fair way to assess this?
Thanks for the question, David. That's an excellent question and a very relevant topic in this program. Next question, please. No, let me, there's a really good answer here. This is a cybersecurity program. And so there is no privacy policy in here. So there's 3 categories that we identified late last year as privacy really became an interesting topic here. The first category is actions or requirements that are specific to cybersecurity per se. The second one is actions or policies or requirements that are specific to consumer privacy, such as, will my data be sold to a third party? There's 0 cybersecurity element in there because it's an intentional decision by the manufacturer to sell the data to a third party. And so requiring that disclosure is pure play privacy policy. In between are things that are relevant to cybersecurity and privacy both. And I'm going to move off of this for a moment and go back to this picture. And what you see are sensor indicators here. The sensor data collection is a cybersecurity element because what data is collected by sensors has cybersecurity utility. Knowing what data is being collected is important when there's been a hack. In addition, consumers really want to know who's got a camera looking at them, basically, things like that. And so the 3 sensor requirements are cameras. If you have a camera, you have to disclose that. If you have a microphone, you have to disclose that. If you have a location tracking capability, you have to disclose that. So that is the only real privacy element here other than protecting data from disclosure through data protection, which is pure play cybersecurity.
Got it. Yeah, thanks, Mike. That's helpful.
Great. Now I see Harsha has a question here. Is there a ballpark on the approximate cost for certification? Just the certification process with UL or any other certification body? And are there any mandatory fees? There are about 11 bodies that have signed up to be cybersecurity label administrators, and most of them are also either directly test labs like UL, which is both an administrator and a test lab, or they have a stable of test labs like IOXT, where they're an administrator. You would apply to them for the grant of security, and you can ask them to arrange for the testing, and they'll farm that out to their stable of test labs. There will likely be, if you're familiar with the FCC's Equipment Authorization TCB, Telecommunication Certification Bureau Labs program, likely many of them are going to sign up as well. A little bit of it depends on commercial demand and whether there's money in the business for them. But there's been a lot of interest in having a lot of competition for doing this. The big question now is, will labs in places like China be allowed to do testing? But that's not something I can comment on here. Is there a ballpark on the approximate cost for certification? I will say that I can't say anything about pricing in terms of dollars on a call like this. I have had discussions with people about trying to limit the complexity of the program so that we don't go out of bounds on costing. It's not going to be free, that's for sure. I'm sorry I can't give you a better answer on that part. John D has a question. Will risk assessment be mandatory? I believe it should be mandatory or optional for gaining the mark. It will be mandatory, I believe. That it'll come. There will be discussion of risk assessment in the UL technical requirements proposal to the FCC. But everybody I know that's involved in the program has pushed for a requirement for risk assessment. Other questions? Okay. If there's no other questions, my email will be in the minutes, I believe. Marta and I talked about that before. I welcome questions and outreach. I can help with questions about this program. I can help you with membership with CTA, the trade association. I can help you with participation in our standards efforts, and I can point you elsewhere if I can't help you. I'm happy to take your email.
Thank you very much,
thank you,
Mike.
Ken.
And
thanks everybody for the opportunity to address the group.
And I wanted to reinforce what Mike said about standards development. CTA is authorized to do American national standards in the fields of home automation and related areas. So CTA is the key organization involved here on the technical side.
I'm going to say thanks, and I need to go catch a flight. So thank you, everyone. Have a great meeting.
Okay, thank you, Mike. So Marta, are you going to describe the ASHB podcasts?
Yeah, thank you, Ken. So for those who are not familiar, I just want to take a moment to highlight the ASHB Smarter Homes and Buildings podcast. This is where industry leaders, innovators share practical insights on technology shaping smarter, safer living spaces. And if you are interested in being a guest or a host on one of our episodes, we are always looking for subject matter experts. There's a lot of flexibility with how we do these. You can be the host or the guest. Your organization could be the host and guest. You can also host and guest with other organizations that you're working with. So again, there's a lot of flexibility in how we do these. And in terms of the topics, as long as they center around the smart home and or smart building, really anything goes. So I certainly do hope that we do get you to reach out to us. You can reach out to myself, Marta Lobotowska, or you can reach us at the email address on the screen there. And we'll be happy to meet with you and go over with how we do these. Also, if you are are looking just to be a host and you're looking to have us search for a guest or vice versa, that can also work. We will reach out to our Smart Home Council and or our Smart Building Council group and see if there's any interest in doing these sorts of things. Our last episode, last two episodes that we did on the smart home, Roy Spencer explained how smart tech like Basement Defender prevents costly water damage. And then we also had an episode where Robert Solar of BIOS Lighting shared how circadian lighting supports better sleep, mood, and performance. And with that, I will hand it over to Ken. But before I do, if there's any questions on our podcast, feel free to either ask in the comment section or again, you can reach out to me directly. Ken?
Marta, thank you. Let me tell you now about important resources that ASHB offers. We have assembled a library of materials that we have generated within ASHB and materials that are generated in the industry at large. ASHB has been doing original papers as members propose it. So we have an opportunity now for anyone who would like to publish a paper, maybe a dozen pages or so, introducing a new topic to our members to come forth, and we will put together for you a committee made up of ASHB participants who could act as you sort of an advisory council as you develop your white paper. If you've got an idea for a white paper that goes into quite a bit of depth, we can divide it into a series of papers that may cover an overview and then maybe some technology and some market issues. As Marta has shown you, we have a number of previously published white papers that are available on the library. Secondly, we do scan the libraries of publications done by other groups, other research organizations, other trade associations. We ask that ASHB members volunteer to review or give us a heads up on items that have been published that are relevant in the smart home or smart building space. We vet these documents quite extensively through guides set up by the Publication Review Committee. We have a formal checklist, and we ask about the relevance of the document, the timeliness of the document, and most importantly, a list of keywords so that you can search our library where there are thousands of papers already posted. Papers are limited to ASHB members for a few years, and then they become publicly available. In consideration of the time you spend to complete the review of the candidates for the library, we offer $25 in credit for ASHB materials plus $25 in cash for the time you've spent as a nominal thank you. So, are there any questions on the the Smart Home Council white papers that you're invited to propose, or the Publication Review Committee of documents published elsewhere that are available through our library? I also want to mention that we have our own ASHB journal of papers, original papers written by members. You're welcome to write on any relevant topic. Your paper doesn't have a specific length. It can include graphics. It can include photos. As you can see here, I've been writing fairly regularly, and I'm just about to send yet another paper to Marta for posting. So please use the CABA journal to get your good ideas out into the community of your colleagues. So any questions on white papers in our research library or our journal? And finally, does anyone like to offer any topic for new business? Do we have any proposals for keynotes, for white papers, for projects that could be part of funded ASHB research project, or items for our next meeting agenda? Well, thank you very much. Joshua is not available now, so Marta's going to tell us about upcoming events.
Thanks, Ken. I'll make this very quick. This will be the last portion of our meeting here. Just a few things that are coming up. We have the Shanghai Smart Home Technology Show taking place in Shanghai, China, August 13th to the 15th. And then, of course, I think the long-awaited CEDIA Expo, annual expo. We will be in attendance for that. We will also have a booth, and we will also be moderating a panel. CEDIA is actually one of the meetings where we host our triannual board meeting. So usually every other year we will host that at CEDIA. We also have the Smart Spaces by Parks Associates, of course, a long time ASHB member. That's taking place September 16th to 17th in Dallas, Texas. And lastly, we have our Smart Home and Furnishings show taking place September 24th to 26th in Chicago, Illinois. We'll also be attending, we'll have a booth there, and we'll also be moderating several panel sessions at the show. This is one of the shows that we are promoting. So if you have any interest in this, please let us know. If you're interested in being a vendor, I think this would be a great opportunity for a lot of the individuals on the call today. And with that, I will pass it over to Ken to adjourn.
So here's your last opportunity to comment on what we've done, to make suggestions to enhance the value of ASHB to your business. So if not, then we'll take that as some degree of satisfaction, and thank you all for attending. Our next meeting is about 3 months from now in August. Details to follow. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you very much, Marta, for organizing this so efficiently.
Thank you, Ken. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.